So today was not the day to go light on food because just one glass of wine was enough to make me dizzy, and that's never really happened for me. The takeaway from that for you is that I might be a bit more scatterbrained today, which is also not a good fit for today's picture. Honestly, I don't even think I should be talking about this movie, both because it isn't really a movie in the traditional sense, and because it's not really part of the DC animated movie catalog. It only is in name. In reality, this movie is an animated tie-in to the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, taking place between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Batman Gotham Knights is an upcoming game where you play as several members of the Bat family trying to protect Gotham after Bruce Wayne's death. No, alas, it is not. Rather, Batman Gotham Knight Singular is a series of 6 vignettes that play similarly to a big budget remake of that one Batman the Animated Series episode, Legends of the Dark Knight. Only instead of adapting different comic books, like The Dark Knight Returns for example, it's done by a bunch of anime production companies. Yes, this movie was made by 4 anime studios, 2 of which are good, 1 of which is okay, and 1 of which is fucking horrible. To briefly express my woes, I can't do a traditional plot synopsis for this movie because the vignettes don't cleanly tie into each other. Instead, I'll just go through each one in turn as non-drunkenly as I can and comment on them as I go. The first one, titled Have I Got a Story for You, is pretty much Legends of the Dark Knight. It's a bunch of smaller stories that are framed as a bunch of kids recounting their experiences meeting the Batman. The first kid says that Batman is a shadow monster, the second says that he's the Man-Bat, and the third says that he's a robot. They tell their stories going in reverse chronological order of Batman fighting a robber with a jetpack, so it starts with the most recent events, and then it goes back, and then it goes further back to the beginning of the encounter. Then, at the end, the robber happens to dive into the place where the kids are discussing this whole thing, with Batman following, of course, and the one kid that didn't previously see part of the action ends up saving Batman's life. This short is okay. It's done by Studio 4C, mostly known to me for their trilogy of Berserk movies based on the Golden Age arc. They have another short later on in the movie that looks way better, like seriously, why are the faces the way that they are? All of the action animation though is great. It's way smoother than Western animation, so if you're into that, well, go watch more anime. But you'll probably like this okay too. The different shorts, however, are just action scenes, so if you're looking for more thoughtful storytelling, then this short will do very little for you. The concepts for what Batman is are pretty lame, though the bland ideas are executed very well. It might just be me, but having a voiceless shadow monster just isn't as cool as buff Batman saying that this is an operating table. The second short, titled Crossfire, sees the aftermath of Batman bringing in the masked gunman, and it's easily my favorite out of the 6, owed mostly to the fact that Production IG animated it. Production IG is, without a doubt, one of the best animation studios still running today. Ghost in the Shell, Eden of the East, Kimi no Toroke, goddamn Psycho Pass, one of my favorite shows. Basically, they know how to do animation, especially urban animation, and it shows here. 2 detectives, one of which ends up betraying Batman in The Dark Knight, by the way, are tasked with taking the captured robber from the first short back to Arkham, where he escaped from. They do that, arguing about the legitimacy of their badge, considering their task of running errands for Batman nonstop. But on the way back, during one of their arguments, they get caught in the crossfire of a gang war, where Batman shows up and beats them all up before complimenting Gordon for picking such good detectives. Again, it's mostly action, though that's technically only true for the second half. While not a lot of profound stuff is said anywhere in this whole film, the first half of this short effectively sets up a conflict between our 2 main characters, and sets up the mood of Gotham exactly how it should be. For just a 2-minute scene, this has got to be the best, creepiest, most disturbing rendition of Arkham Asylum and its inmates that I've probably ever seen. The densest syrup atmosphere then bleeds into the action scene with striking colors and fantastic direction. The quick cuts of animation as the police car explodes and the black officer is pulled out of the way of the explosion by Batman, Batman's brutal battle against the gang members, and him walking through fire, literally wading through hell to save the girl in blue. It's all so striking that I'd almost recommend the movie just for this short. The third vignette is called Field Test, and unfortunately, after that high point, we've reached the worst one by far. It has an ugly CG golf ball, Bruce Wayne with yaoi anime boy hair, and is the only short that doesn't really tie into at least one other short, at least not directly. The previous 2 were both connected, as the masked robber was the one that the officers were taking back to Arkham, and then the next 3 deal with the chase after Killer Croc and the Scarecrow, into Batman trying to trudge his way out of the sewers injured from the encounter encounter, to him recuperating and then having to go stop Deadshot from carrying out a hit on Commissioner Gordon. So they all cleanly weave into one another. This one is mainly just this short story. Lucius Fox designs a device that can reflect bullets from the vibrations they make or something, and Batman goes out and tests it. Surprise, surprise, when the bullet is reflected, it ends up shooting through a guy's chest, and Batman has to rush him to a hospital, before telling Lucius to scrap the project because it would put other people in danger. I have several issues. First, there is no way that Batman would neglect this device completely. He would workshop it and test it in a controlled environment. I refuse to believe that someone as smart as him was dumb enough to not realize that the reflected bullets had to go somewhere else. He wouldn't scrap it, he would refine it to diffuse their force so they fall harmlessly to the ground or something. Also, the golf scene is pointless. It may have been my inebriated mind, and I'm shocked that I managed to recall the word inebriated while inebriated, but I have no idea what the point of that scene was. I get that Bruce was trying to get something from his shady golf partner, but I don't know how it was supposed to tie into anything. After the fact, I read on Wikipedia that he stole the PDA that he gives to Gordon regarding Deadshot's targets, but that wasn't communicated very well at all. Or maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I was really craving popcorn at that point. In any case, none of the action excites, and the golf scene didn't keep my interest at all. Especially I was distracted by just how ugly everything looked. I personally don't mind Bruce Wayne's hair, but I can see it being a big turnoff for those not accustomed to anime hair and its ridiculousness. The CG golf ball is just incredibly bad form, but hey, this is Studio B-Train, so I guess it's to be expected.
B-Train is the worst anime studio in existence.
The fourth short is called In Darkness Dwells and is animated by Madhouse Incorporated, of Hunter x Hunter fame as well as the good season of One Punch Man. Basically, they do action very, very well, and this is another action-oriented short. It follows Batman as he tracks Killer Croc through a sewer where the villain has Scarecrow's fear toxin in his blood, so when Croc bites Batman, the Dark Knight is infected too. This leads into an encounter with Scarecrow himself, where he has to save a reverend while fighting off the effects of the fear toxin. It's another good action short, though the static lighting isn't as interesting to look at as the dynamic stuff and thick atmosphere of Crossfire. The scenario is more interesting though, with some good use of environments, like when Batman ignites the methane gas that's been built up in the top of the sewer chamber. I honestly don't have much to say about it though, other than that Killer Croc looks absolutely awful in a good bad way, so we're just gonna move on. The fifth short is called Working Through Pain, after a line from the previous short. This one sees Batman trying to make his way out of the sewer after being injured. I was apparently too busy with my popcorn to notice that he's shot in this initial encounter, and I was stupidly left wondering why his bite wound shifted places. I probably should have eaten more today. In any case, intercut with this struggle is a memory from when Bruce was training to become the Batman, where he learned how to, work through pain from an Islamic woman who had, at one point, disguised herself as a man to learn how to become a fakir, an Islamic holy person that I am very unfamiliar with, so I won't try and educate with bad and tipsy information. In any case, she was found out and cast out as a witch, and has been harassed ever since. Bruce is then cast out of her home after defending her from a group of those harassers, when she claims that his, quote, pain, meaning metaphysical pain, is something that she can't help him with, and that he may not be able to overcome it either, but that it seems like he may not want to. In the present, Batman finds a bunch of guns that were thrown away, and there's this weird moment between him and Alfred that, I'll be honest, I just don't really get. I don't understand the significance of it. I guess because these guns were thrown away after a crime, he feels responsible for them? I don't know. In any case, this is the second short by Studio 4C, and it looks much better in the face than their first. I actually really like the flashback story. It's nice to see a Batman training session that didn't involve punching people. The accents felt authentic to me, and the performance of Cassandra especially, the woman that Bruce learns from, I thought was really excellent.
Research the techniques. Breathing control, hypnosis.
What of the spiritual nature? Have you researched that as well? The interior is something you deny.
No, it's something I manage.
Do you?
Does that hurt, Cassandra?
It feels like being caught in the rain. An annoyance.
Does it scar?
Bruce. What pain doesn't?
It's the only really dialogue-focused short in the film, unless you count Field Test, which I don't because it sucks and has an actual long action scene at the end. Anyway, it serves well to break up the pace a little bit and gives us a breather after the high-octane stuff that we just got through with. The final short is called Deadshot and is animated beautifully by Madhouse. It deals with Deadshot doing a hit on Gordon and Batman has to stop it, and is again another long action scene. But this one is really, really good. It serves to tie into Bruce's past when he says at the end that he's been spending his whole life trying to stop, quote, those two bullets, the ones that killed his parents, relating it to the bullets that he deflected when they were fired at Gordon earlier. And the setting is once again used beautifully, with the narrowness of the train tunnel relating back to the narrowness of the alleyway where Bruce's parents were killed. Deadshot's voice is really the only disappointment here.
Just keeping it interesting.
It's just so high-pitched and whiny. Oh, and we have Chapter 2 of the Cheekbone Chronicles. Other than that, though, it's a fantastic, bombastic way to end this movie. But do I recommend it? No. It's just a bunch of shorts, undeserving of your money. Yes, most of them technically do tie into each other, but by the nature of them being shorts, you could watch each of them standalone and really miss nothing but the equivalent of an Easter egg. You know, oh hey, I know where that PDA came from, or hey, I know that robber that they're talking about. I would chalk that up to the fact that all of these vignettes were done by different animation companies. They were probably given the plot with the backstory, and they treated each one as a standalone, where they had to explain everything, even if, for example, we just saw Batman capture the masked robber that they take to Arkham in Crossfire. They didn't need to explain that to us if they wanted us to view this as a continuous narrative. I could just see if this was all done as that continuous narrative, that they would have just explained it as he was taking the guy in, instead of just explaining it again at Gordon's office. You know, that kind of thing. And really, it isn't a continuous narrative. Again, shorts. Each has its own build-up and climax, and the final one is really no bigger than the others in terms of scale or stakes, save for that it's Gordon being threatened, and not his two detectives, for an example. There is a clear progression of focus, though, and that is something that I will commend the film for. It starts completely separate from Batman with the kids, to where he seems almost like an alien force. And then the two detectives who deal more closely to him, we get to see him through a more cynical lens, but still relatively human. And then primarily through the lens of Bruce Wayne, like who Batman is to his alter ego. And then it's Batman viewed essentially through Gordon on a typical case of catching the bad guy. And then we see a flashback with Bruce Wayne, once again him becoming Batman. It gets closer and closer to the core of the character. And then we relate it all back to how Batman views the world and his mission of protecting Gotham City. So in that sense, I suppose it is a movie, and it was the right thing to do to count it as such. But again, do I recommend it? Still no. Just watch the second, fifth, and sixth shorts and you'll be satisfied. Thankfully, DC learned their lesson with this one and realized that a series of vignettes marketed as a full movie probably wasn't a way to... Oh, god damn it.